Welcome to my still new dance podcast, Hey Dancer. I'm your host, Miller Duray, a former professional teen dancer who returned to dance 3 decades later. But wait, somewhere in there, during that interim, I actually competed on a TV dance competition reality show. Yeah, long after I quit dance and long before the idea to return was even a little spark in my mind. And this moment for me was defining, actually. That may sound hyperbolic, but I will do my best to explain why. So for the first time, I'm going to tell you the story. Before I get into it, though, I just want to thank you. According to Apple, the first week of my podcast being released, and then for the next 3 subsequent weeks, is that redundant? Next and then subsequent. Anyway, my podcast ranked in the top podcast for the category of performing arts. It was in the top 50 twice and then the top 60 once. They only show you the top 60. And that's an extraordinary thing. I'm like beyond grateful. So thank you so much. And another website, Raphonic, which is very trustworthy, which shows how your podcast is ranking around the world, had my podcast at number one in Chile, under performing arts, and 2 in Mexico, and 4 in New Zealand, and 10 in Italy, like everywhere. And it's just, I mean, oh my God, it's just so affirming, and I'm so grateful. And so thank you so much for the listens. It really does mean a lot to me, and it propels me to just want to show up even more, to be honest. So I know somewhere, according to the data, people are listening, and it would be lovely if some of those listens would convert to, ratings and reviews and follows and things like that, because those numbers really do help a new podcast out. So if you can take a moment and do all of that, it goes a long way. It means a lot. Thank you so much. Now let's get to the story. So this was around 2007, 2008. I'm working 3 jobs, restaurant jobs mostly, really having a hard time paying the bills. I have an agent for acting and all that, but auditions aren't happening too much. I'm on YouTube trying to grow one show that I had at the time. Again, I was an early settler on YouTube and looking for ways to make extra cash. And I was on Craigslist and I saw that there was an audition for some dance reality show. They may have been a bit more discreet about it, but it just said dance. It said, cash, a couple $100s. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I remember going to the audition and it was like, in some tiny office with a camera and lights. And they just had me grooving to different songs from different time periods, very specific songs like the Macarena and the YMCA. And this is my memory. They said they were looking for people who were not professional dancers, who, if they were in a crowd, like at a wedding, like they would stick out, And I thought, well, I haven't taken class now in at least 15 years. I'm not a professional. And I know, it just kind of reminds me all of a sudden of Dancing with the Stars and the people who go on that show who say, they're not dancers, but they were clearly dancers at one point. I'm like, is that fair? But that's a whole other conversation. Anyway, I thought it was very fair that I was auditioning for this because clearly I hadn't danced in I probably stopped class in about 94. And if this was around 2008, fast math, that's like 14 years of no, training and all of that. I think that's fair to say I was no longer a professional dancer. Anyway, I remember the audition went really, really well. It came along easy to me and I was grooving, and whatever genre of music they were playing, I feel like I connected to very, very fast. And I remember the producer was like blown away, but they didn't say a whole lot, but he seemed very, very impressed. And then sometime later, I forget how long, I got the call that I would be on the show. And then the producer on the phone was talking to me and he said, I think you're going to win this thing. He's like, I don't just say that to all, the contestants and stuff. He's like, but you have something really special. Like, your audition was by far the best. And I thought, oh my God, okay. The prize was, gosh, I don't want to be wrong, but it was something like 50 or 100K, if you win the season. And of course, if with taxes taken out, it's like half of that and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, still pretty great, right? So I thought, great, I'll do it. I'll show up and see what happens. So now this was a brand new show, so there was no way to really anticipate what you might be in for. It was on, I believe, TLC, a cable channel. Here's the part where As I've mentioned in other episodes of my podcast, I don't gossip, I don't drop names, and this is a really kind of touchy situation for me because I have a lot of, I don't know, at the time at least, I had feelings and emotion attached to it. I don't anymore. I'm actually grateful for the experience at the end of the day because it was a learning experience. That said, the people involved are iconic in the dance world, more iconic now even than they were then. I know who they were. One of the dancers, judges, is someone I remember from my youth, like really well. And we kind of knew each other. And I kind of wondered if they would remember me, kind of, sort of, and then think like, oh, well, he shouldn't be here because he used to dance and whatever. Anyway, so I'm not going to mention any names in that way. I'm actually going to be pretty discreet about the show and who the host was, but I will say that it was on the Learning Channel. And what the conceit was, the premise of the show, was just that I think was 5 or 6 dancers, quote unquote dancers, people who are, again, not professional, that said they move really well, they stand out at a party, whatever. I actually think I blocked a lot of the, I don't have it on tape. I don't have it on record. This show has been completely scrubbed from the internet. I'm not being cute when I say that. There's literally nothing on YouTube for it. Nothing. Nothing on Google except that it exists on IMDb. There are, I think, 2 dancers who posted very grainy clips of their very quick dances from the show on YouTube. I was not on those episodes, so you just can't find it anywhere. It seems as if that is a joke. How can it not be on Google? It's not. Hey there, Editor Miller here. I'm actually remembering now there was a trailer for this new series at the time on YouTube, and it lived for a couple of years because I remember from time to time I would check it out and I was featured prominently in this trailer. Anyway, that is also no longer on YouTube. The TLC network, which is now owned by Discovery, they have different YouTube channels and whatever, and they just, for whatever reason, must have totally scrubbed anything to do, maybe for legal liability, whatever reasons, they just decided to completely off any footage remaining of this series. It's really sort of funny, actually. I don't remember which songs they played, except that the songs were of very specific, moments in time in different genres. So that's what they would do. They would play songs like for 10 seconds each, and 10 seconds at a time, and then they would switch it up on you, and then you had to amend your dance to the new song. And I remember one time I did the pony because it just was right, and I don't even know what the song was. I remember one of the songs I danced to was Moni Moni by Billy Idol, but I can't recall what dance I did to it. Anyway, so it was like round after round of cutting dancers. I was the only contestant who didn't have negative nor constructive feedback. I remember one of the judges was like, "It's Miller time." And they just were obsessed with me. And the audience was obsessed with me. The audience was really on my side, screaming and rooting for me every single time somebody was cut and there was a new round. Eventually I get to the finals, right? Now it's just me and the other dancer. And I will tell you about this other dancer, what I found out later. Anyway, now for the first time, we are dancing at the same time. So when it was on TV, for example, it was a sort of split screen of us dancing at the same time and them playing music, and the music just changing every 5 or 10 seconds or whatever. I think before that, if I didn't make this clear, I think before that, every time we danced, it was sort of a solo. And then we had to come out, one at a time, and then the judges would decide who would get to the next round. And I remember also, by the way, being very, very nervous. I mean, you know it's going to be on TV. I hadn't danced in decades. And I remember that the producers told me what I might be in for. I may have not rehearsed, but definitely looked at different songs through the decades and thought, okay, well, if they play Donna Summer or something, this is what I might want to do if I dance to it. Or if they play Michael Jackson, or if they play, some 1920s Charleston kind of thing, but they didn't tell me what the songs were going to be. They just said, songs throughout history, how would you dance to them on the dance floor, like at a party or something? I think that was pretty much the only detail that they gave us. I was very nervous. I actually have this very clear memory of before it was my time, to be introduced, standing behind the curtain and or on, off stage, in the wings, as they say, and my heart just racing and thinking, okay, man, you know what? You got this. Just be in the moment and just have a good time. You are a performer, and dance is in your soul, and you're going to get through this. Like, it's going to be just fine. Honestly, it's crazy because I think now if I had to do it, I'd be way more petrified. I don't know. And when you're young, you're less petrified because, the fear isn't there as much. And then the older you get, like somehow it's a little bit more and more and more scary. I don't know. Is that true for you? Let me know. Shoot me a DM or something. Leave a comment if you're watching this on YouTube. I remember very excited that I was just making all the cuts, and the judges, loved me. And now it's the finals. I got to the top 2 of my episode, and I killed it. And I remember I threw in, as I was dancing through my periphery, I saw the other dancer, and I was very confused. I mean, one of those moments where you have 4,000 thoughts at the same time. One of my thoughts was, he's not supposed to be a dancer. He literally was high kicking, doing the splits. He threw in a flip, and I thought, oh, this is not right. But if he's going to go there, because I honestly did my best to hold back of throwing any tricks, if you know what I mean. Things I knew I still could do. If I wanted to do a shenane into an axle jump or something, or I don't think I could kick my leg high anymore, but I could certainly come off like a dancer. I was trying to come off pedestrian and somebody who clearly had musicality and could feel the beat and was good, but nowhere near showing off professional style. And all of a sudden I saw this guy, like he was going there. And so I had to make this sort of split-second decision. How much was I going to go into it? And then I just threw in a back handspring. I don't even know how I did, but I did. At the end, the judges, as they do on these shows, they gave their critiques. Again, for me, it was all love. The other guy actually had some constructive feedback. Now cut to the end of the show. And this is the part that was really interesting in the moment to live through. And that is this. I lost. The other guy won. Oh my God, this is really crazy. I have the chills. I know if you're seeing this on YouTube, the hairs are like standing up. I can still really, really connect to this moment and be in it. When I tell you, hand to God, and I believe in God, so this is saying something, the audience booed so aggressively when I lost. I felt so bad for the guy who won. The audience, it was like thunderous. It was like really intense booing. I felt bad for the guy who won. I wondered how the judges felt about it. And a part of me was, how could I not feel at the same time a little bit vindicated? Like, oh, wow, that's really nice and supportive. That is a moment that will live forever with me. What happened next, which I think is what is sort of surprising to some people, but not to me. And I'll tell you why it wasn't surprising to me. Well, actually, hold. Before I go into that, I remember when I left, the guy who won mentioned as an aside that he actually knew the choreographer who was one of the judges, the person that I mentioned I knew from my youth. He was like, yeah, I'm going to be gender neutral here. He was like, yeah, I just saw them at an audition like a month ago, and we were talking, and I was like, whoa. So this guy comes on a show, admits to being an actual dancer, and he's on a show where you're not supposed to be a dancer. And he even knows the choreographer? Whoa, what? So that was just a little bit shady. Oh, here's something I didn't mention that I'm remembering now in the moment. I did not practice, rehearse, or bullet point this story. I wanted it to be just, off the cuff and from my memory and very, very conversational. But that person who's the iconic choreographer came up to me on stage as the audience is booing aggressively, and I can barely hear this person, and they said to me, do I know you? Did you used to dance years ago? And I just remember, because the moment, the energy was just so strange. I knew that it was unjust that I lost. I knew it. And the audience's reaction confirmed it. And I didn't want to talk to this person. And I didn't consider myself, anybody in the dance industry at all anymore because I wasn't. And I just kind of dismissed them really fast. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And then I just kind of like, oh, by the way, my mom and sister were in the audience. And so before I get to their reaction to it, and the big thing that I want to reveal in a moment, I just remember backstage, the other dancer, he admitted that he knew the choreographer. So again, I thought that was kind of shady. And the producer, then he gave us all of our cash. Now remember, this producer told me he thought I was going to win the whole freaking season. And it wasn't one of those things in my heart that I knew he told everybody. And I remember he gave me the cash. I think it was like $200. Not bad, paid for, maybe a few weeks of groceries at the time. Thank you very much. It was one shift at a restaurant job. Thank you very much. I remember him giving the cash to all the dancers and looking them in the eye and, thanking them, but he wouldn't look me in the eye. He handed me the cash and he just said, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. And then he went on to the next person. Like he knew it was wrong. He knew what went down was something else. Maybe it was a political thing. I don't freaking know. But whatever it wasn't right. This is just a random thing. I don't even know why I'm telling you this part of the story. It's just funny how memory is and the things we recall. I remember a couple of the women dancers on the show said to me, just so you know, we were watching you on screen and you looked so great, like a freaking movie star. Like you're gonna be so happy, not just with your dancing, but how you look. And that was just really, really nice. And that just kind of was like, okay. And I don't even know why I just shared that. Maybe that sounds however it sounds. But you gotta take the good stuff too, that was very, very sweet. This was for me at a particular time in my life. I don't wanna get emotional right now. That was really, really hard. Again, working 3 jobs, barely getting sleep, one restaurant job, getting home at 2:00 in the morning, then having to be at another restaurant job at 7 a.m. And it was just a really chaotic time. And I also, at the same time, and I may do a podcast on this if I talk about some more personal stuff, but I was at the time a top 10 finalist for the most prestigious TV writing competition in the country. And I had just found out that I didn't win it. Like I didn't place in the top 5, which is what you needed to do to be employed by ABC Disney for a year and change your entire life and trajectory. Yes, there was a time I was very aggressively pursuing TV writing. And so that had just happened and it was supposed to be a career life-changing defining moment. And then that fell through. So this was like on the heels of that also. And then, years of acting and being told you're the best in the room by casting and whatever it is, but not getting the job, not getting, being top 2 for a project that eventually makes somebody's career, but you don't get it. And then you're back where you started and you're auditioning and it's hard to even get in the room to audition and going from agent to agent. It was just a really, really hard time, to be frank. And then this was like the icing on the cake. Oh, wow, I should have won. I don't like using the word should. Talent, art, dance, all of that, very subjective. There is no such thing as a best. But if you watch the show and the judges' feedback throughout the show and then the audience's reaction when I lost, I should have won. But also, spiritually speaking, I shouldn't have because I didn't. And it is what it is. So I remember also, this is a very personal thing, a story to share. My sister at the time was a major working actor, and she told me this story, how afterward, because again, my mom and my sister were in the audience, and my sister told me that when they left, my sister got in the car and she called her boyfriend at the time, and she was sobbing. And she was like, I don't understand. Why is my brother always the best, but he doesn't win? Like, when is he going to get his chance? When is he going to get his big break? You should have seen what happened today at the show and the way the audience went nuts when he lost. And I don't know, that was just a really sweet moment to me. It makes me emotional thinking of it. Do we all have our journey? And this is just part of mine. I remember a few people said to me, my family and some of the other dancers were like, just wait until this gets on TV, and people watching will hear how much the audience booed. Like, it's going to be really good for you or something like that. And I said, nope. They're going to swap out the sound. How did I know this would happen? Well, let me tell you. I've got a couple of examples. Just one, being in the industry for so long, for so many years, I was very aware of being in the studio audience and then seeing a show on TV that I was in the audience for, and then hearing and seeing how when it gets on TV, how the editing plays a huge role. There's laughter on TV when there wasn't in person. There's clapping on TV when there wasn't in person. They often swap out audiences, and this is something that I learned when I was a teenager. And this is an amazing example, which I don't know many people can have, and that is this. When I was on Star Search with my sister way back in the day, my father was an electrical contractor, and he came to a couple of the filmings and maybe even a rehearsal, I'm not sure. And because his business was, construction, electricity, lights, all of that, he befriended the people who were working the lights on Star Search. And they loved him, and they allowed him to film the actual show. My father filmed the actual taping of Star Search, like a couple of the episodes. I have those tapes somewhere. Don't ask me where. Haven't seen them in decades. I think he was up above somewhere, where they do the lights or something, because the point of view was like from high above. And what a crazy thing to have, right? That probably could never happen today. But we actually had the filming of live tapings of Star Search. And this is when I learned this, what I'm saying, to be true. And how much they alter and play with what winds up on television. There were singers whose performances were clearly altered when they got to TV. The singers who ultimately lost, they changed a little bit of their power. It was like they lowered the mic a little bit for, what eventually wound up on television. The singers, I remember the singers more than anything. I know this really well because one of my very, very dear friends at the time was serendipitously, weirdly enough, coincidentally, on the same show as we were on as a junior singer, and we were teen dancers. Her voice is just so astounding. And she was on, and they very, very clearly, when the audience was screaming, and my father has it on video, on TV, no screaming. You hear nothing. When the audience was like clapping and you can hear it aggressively in the audience, on TV, you hear no clapping. However, there was one shot where the camera like pans around her and she hits this amazing note. You don't hear the clapping, but you scan the audience and they made a mistake. You can see the claps, you just don't hear them. But the other singer, you hear all the claps and you hear the screaming, and that singer's mic is perfect. But on my dad's video, the mic of my friend, just as good, but not on TV. So I learned very quickly at a very young age, they want the audience to believe certain things. If somebody lost, who maybe shouldn't have, they will actually put it on TV slightly amended so that you're not so upset. You're not so much thinking, what the hell was that? So I learned very young. I remember even when I was a teenager, comparing and contrasting the Star Search version winding up on TV versus my dad's version. Same taping, same show. It was shocking how different the audience response was, again, live versus what wound up on television. I wasn't surprised, although the booing was so aggressive. A part of me was like, it's going to take some pretty fancy editing skills to make it like the audience was screaming. But that's exactly what happened. By the time it got on television, you would have had no idea. It just appeared. The audience was so excited that the other guy won, and they're screaming and cheering. And I remember a friend of mine at the time was living in New York, and he watched it before I could watch it on the West Coast. And he was like, oh my God, you were so robbed. I was like, did you hear the booing? He was like, what booing? I was like, I knew it. I knew they were going to take it out. Now, hopefully my word is enough. But at the time that this show came out, for the next couple of months, I admit, I was like looking on Google and all the things. And I saved a blog post all these years later, because I'm crazy. I saved a blog post where a TV writer reviewed the show and had gone to the tapings. And to prove to you that I'm not making this up, although why would you think I was? Because, that's not how I play. So here is a blog that appeared at the time. I would never have found it, I don't think, had I not bookmarked it. And here's me using that bookmark 14 freaking years later. I knew one day I would have my moment. I would have my time to share the story and express the ridiculousness of the whole thing. All right, Editor Miller here once again. So I thought I had it bookmarked. I know I've seen it over the years, but for the life of me, I cannot find it. I even went into an old laptop anyway after over 30 minutes of Google searching, finally doing a custom date range with a couple of keywords. Did I finally find the blog post I knew existed? Okay, so the website is called Hollywood Junket. Although, this may be Googleable, I'm not going to give all the names of all the things. Just a couple of key points from the article. Most of the winners selected were blatantly denounced by the audience who loudly booed most of the winners. However, once the show goes to air, I'm sure viewers at home will hear cheers from the audience from footage shot separately by producers. So this writer totally knew that too. They go on to say, in several cases, clearly the better dancers from their groups were sent home, which again led to a lot of disgruntled audiences. And then the writer ends by saying, I'm guessing that the show's demographic audience is women ages 32 to 55. Too bad there's not a standards and practices for fair judging on a game show. I mean, come on. So yeah, that proves right there that that I wasn't the only one. Something I neglected to mention, hey, Editor Miller again, talking about what they show on TV and whatever. Not only did they take out the audience boos and whatever, they also altered my performance in that final top two on the split screen thing. I mentioned that other person dancing, he did a flip, which they showed. They took my flip completely out of it. They cut around it. So again, another supportive example as to them diminishing my final performance so that the other guy winning looked a little more probable. It's so funny because I wonder if I should even share this. My mom, of course, knew who the one choreographer was specifically from my youth. This is just a random story too, but I remember once, just a few years after I quit dance, I was about maybe 21, and I was at the mall with my mom, and we bumped into this dancer who was already like a major working dancer. We hugged. My mom knew who everybody was, right? But she wasn't in any way like a stage mom or like always at the classes, but she was around enough to know who the people were. And so she knew who this dancer was. And I remember we hugged and all of that. And then this dancer told us that they were going to New York to do their first Broadway show. And my mom, I remember saying to this person, was like, oh my God, you're just so incredible. Broadway is lucky to have you. Anyway, my mom said, I was watching the judges. And she said the other two judges were rooting for you. They wanted you. But I saw this person, the one we actually know, he was fighting for the other guy and he was changing their minds. And it was because of this person. And so from that moment on, it's my mom, she hates this person. And I'm like, you know what, Mom, it's a freaking TV talent reality show. But I'm not going to lie. I did wonder in the moment, why though? But hey, how many times have you watched a reality show, a TV competition show of any, singing, dancing, whatever, and just think, why did the judges make that decision? That seems really odd, Editor Miller here. Another thought I just had, and of course I cannot know this to be true, but was the show entirely scrubbed from the internet because they knew the results of most of the episodes were totally upside down and ultimately unjust? I don't know. We'll never know. I'll end on a bright note. Years and years later, I was at a conference for a very well-known entrepreneur, one of those sort of, seminars where, all these speakers come on stage, very self-development and whatever, and thousands of people in the audience. And I was like in the nosebleeds, I'm in the very, very, very back. And all of a sudden they announce, we're going to have an impromptu dance competition. It's going to be a dance-off. Come to the stage if you want to do this, and we'll select one winner. And if you win, you'll come to the VIP party. And so in the moment, I didn't even think twice. I don't know what possessed me. I do not know what took over me. But from the very back of this huge ass, I don't know, banquet hall thing, I just remember running for my life to make it to the stage. And as I'm running, I'm already seeing the stage fill up with dancers. I'm like, I'm not going to make it. But somehow I got onto the stage in time to compete in this thing. And they just played song after song. I do remember one of the songs was Single Ladies. And I did the choreo as best to my memory of it, kind of made it up, but probably did a little bit of the real thing. And I made all the cuts on that too. And the audience was like screaming for me. And long story short, I won. And then I got the ticket, the only one to get the ticket to go to the VIP party with all these like really successful entrepreneur people. And I got to meet the person who ran the whole event and whose event it was. And it was like a really special moment. And for me, the reason why that really sticks out is because, and this may not be true, oh my God, I'm getting the chills again, but this is how it lives in my head at least, and that is this. I was staunchly in the closet when I competed on that TV talent reality show. And I often used to wonder, am I not getting things in my life because I'm in the closet? Like, is the universe, is God not rewarding me with blessings, even when it appears I deserve this or that? Is it because I'm in the closet? And that is something you can torture yourself with, and I cannot know. What I do know is that I had recently come out of the closet right before this big event I just mentioned, this big seminar with thousands of people, and then I win the dance competition. No, it wasn't on TV, it wasn't with famous judges, but it still felt like something, and I was still honored. My thought was, I remember on stage as I was dancing, you are who you are now. You don't have any more secrets. The universe is going to reward you with things because you are just being open about who you are. And that may sound corny, but then I won, and it was just kind of an example for me to just continue being who I am. And the more you are who you are, the more hard work you're putting into things, the universe will conspire to assist you, because maybe if you have restriction in you, just by not even being who you are and having this big secret, like you may live, and I considered myself a super authentic person and somebody who didn't lie, like not a liar, but I'm holding a huge part of my life from people. And so I don't want to say it's a lie, but it's certainly withholding a big part of me. And until I released that, that is when my life really began to change. And that was just one example of it. And being here for this dance podcast is another example, showing up to my purpose. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story, dancer. If you did, kindly share if it was in any way inspiring, if you want other dancers to hear, if it was entertaining, whatever it was. I do appreciate it. Rate, review, follow, subscribe. And I just really appreciate you being here. I appreciate your support. And until next time.